So what can we learn from our shadows? From the dark of winter, or the shadows that are cast in the summer heat? What richness in our lives does the shadow of our life bring? So in Psalm 23:4, it says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. So I love that psalm. It's one of my favorites. But it says that I shall walk. Maybe you even want to skip. Maybe you want to run. But you will keep walking. You know, I've heard it said that when you're walking through hell, don't stop to take pictures. Don't stop and buy a t-shirt. You know, although I'm sure some of us have, I've been to hell and back t-shirts. You know, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. And metaphysically, what that means to me is your rod and your staff are this teaching. They represent the knowledge that you carry. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Now, if you were a shepherd, you would use that rod and staff to keep, you know, your flock in line, or to possibly help you get up a hill, or to guard off some of the wolves that may have come into your flock. But in this case, thy rod and thy staff that comfort us is our knowledge base. When we know who and what we truly are, the shadow does not take us into dark places. We are all created in the image and likeness of God. God, perfect human, perfect being. We're perfect in our imperfection. You know, in a diamond, it is the imperfections, the facets that make it so beautiful. That's what makes us so beautiful, is our facets. Next time you have a challenge, you can say, oh, that's just one of my facets, one of my many facets. So God and knowledge is the light that dissolves the darkness. So are we truly feeling like perfect beings? Well, if we're honest with ourselves and others, I'm sure that there are times that we don't. But in our imperfection, if we can see that we are perfect, we create an opening where we can see in the darkness. It's so important. You know, spiritual mind treatment, scientific prayer treatment, teaches us to look beyond conditions, to align our consciousness with the divine pattern of wholeness. When we acknowledge the reality of our life, we also need the healing of the invisible wounds of our soul. You know, you may not see someone's wounds, but we don't know what they've been through. We don't know what they've walked through. All of us have tender places where we may have had an experience that we're still getting over. You know, the ego can, at times, limit our thoughts and can produce errors in judgments. So we must become aware that our individual ego can, at times, build up our shadow experience. What richness lives in the shadows of our lives? And, you know, when we recognize our shadow side, we can shift that negative perception into looking beyond the appearance. That's what metaphysics is to me, is looking beyond the appearance to the richness within the situation. We can begin to seek alignment with the spiritual truth of who we really are. But we need to see all aspects of ourselves, and this includes the shadow side. Welcoming the shadow means becoming aware of it. So what is the shadow? Carl Jung has defined the shadow as what a human being would not want to be, but it is part of us. The shadow can appear as the negative side of our personality, the sum total of all of our unpleasant traits that a person wants to hide, the inferior or the unworthy or primitive side of our human nature, one's own second personality, if you will, one's own dark side of the moon, as it were. So every person has a shadow side, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. It makes up who we are. Everything that is material casts a shadow. It is, in particular, the shadow that makes us all human. It's part of what we are. The less the shadow is incorporated in the conscious human life, the darker and the denser it gets. What richness lives in the shadows of our lives? We'll never know if we don't look. So becoming aware of our shadow side is an essential part in our learning of who we really are. Someone who is aware of and owns their shadow side has the opportunity to identify and then correct this energy before it hijacks our experiences. In the process of identifying and neutralizing our shadow side through scientific prayer treatment, we get the opportunity to use that information as an asset, not a detriment. However, when the person denies and isolates this impact from their consciousness, they never experience the correction. And then it results in an unconscious inner conflict. Have you ever had an unconscious inner conflict? How would you know if it's unconscious? Well, I just want to say something about shadow energy and our teaching here, because some may say that we're not to give any attention to our shadow side or our shadow energy. But I think we're missing an opportunity for great healing. And we just need to be very aware not to miss the healing that can occur when we can address this subject with enlightenment. What richness lives in the shadow of our lives? In a moment of our unawareness, that which has been oppressed can suddenly erupt as aggression if not addressed properly. This is when we find someone at the grocery store cursing the avocados for not being ripe. You ever done that yourself? Where you had energy about one thing that you couldn't really talk about. So when something else ticked you off, boy, they got the full load, didn't they? Well, consciously dealing with the shadow energy, we begin to embrace and integrate it back into the positiveness of our being that we are created to be. Our shadow side is the part of us that wants us to live in harmony with all aspects of our being, in whatever form it manifests. It's just another aspect of who we truly are. What richness lives in the shadows of our lives? If we don't look, we'll never know. Once again, Carl Jung identified the shadow side of us with the contents of the individual's collective consciousness. The content of one's individual unconsciousness is intertwined with the archetypal content of the collective unconscious. That includes our dark side as just another aspect of our being. So to accept and understand the role of the shadow energy in one's life can be a therapeutic and healing experience when approached in the correct manner. Let's take a look at the metaphysical interpretation relating to the physical properties of shadow energy. Jacob Lieberman wrote, "A shadow is produced when an object blocks light. Whenever we block the light guiding our life, we create a shadow. Only when we can become transparent and in alignment with the source of light, as when the sun is directly overhead, does the shadow magically disappear." Recognizing the shadow energy in our lives and dealing with it constructively can be the catalyst towards change, enlightenment, and ultimate healing. So in conclusion, what richness lives in the shadows of our lives? We need to go there, grab the awareness of that experience, and bring it into the light of understanding. Once again, Jacob Lieberman wrote, "What we call our shadow is nothing more than an aspect of our nature waiting to be embraced and reclaimed." And I wrote, "Embracing our shadow is not something to be feared. It is a new level of enlightenment within ourselves waiting to be discovered." What enlightenment is waiting for your recognition of it? So I'd like to leave you with a piece by Marianne Williamson called "Our Greatest Fear," and it goes something like this. "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. And so it is. Amen. Well, it's time for our healing prayer now. So I invite you to close your eyes or gaze out the window or just take a soft focus on something so that we can go deeper and follow our teaching. So I invite you to bring to the forefront of your consciousness what you choose to believe the power of creation is for you. You can give it any name you want. That's your business. But I think that we can agree that there is a power. There is something that is animating this thing called life. It is breathing our body. It is beating our heart. It is allowing us to think, to contemplate, to make decisions, and be awake, alert, and aware. I know that each one of us is a divine emanation an outpicturing of the very power of life itself and its ability to create. And here we are, all in this unified field of consciousness. I invite you to bring to mind what you're working with right now. Maybe you've thought of something that was a shadow side for you. Let's go into that with a lightheartedness, knowing that whatever has happened to you, and I'm not minimizing anything that may be a very challenging situation, but let us look at the gift of healing right here and right now. Let us point our attention to the healing around parts of ourself that we may have neglected, and pull the richness of the blessing in every situation. Again, I may not know what you're walking through, but I know God does. And as we introduce God to our challenges, the infinite springs into life. He is activated and a connection is made. Healing begins and the revealing of truth starts to work in your life. And that's what's happening right here and right now. So we give great thanks. We bless all the first responders, anyone who may be walking through a challenge, be it psychological or physical or mental, spiritual. We know that there is a way, and we introduce the light into every situation. So we give great thanks. We are so blessed to have this information, to have this knowledge, and to use it in the highest and best way that makes sense to us, that transforms our lives into the beautiful diamonds, including all of its facets. So we let go. We release this word directly into the living, loving law of mind. For I know that as we release and completely let go, that the infinite takes that information and reformulates itself to be the healing, to be the blessing, to be the love that we have all come here to be. And so it is. Amen. Well, again, thank you for joining us this morning. I'd like to just say, if you'd like to give an offering to us, to look on our website for our donation button. You can also write a check and send it in. There's also a Give Plus app that we have that allows you to go electronically and to give to us. I just want to say something, that we have had an outpouring of new gifts. And I want to thank everyone who has given or intends to give. Just your intention is enough. It does help to have the actual gift, but we know that the love of giving is what the demonstration is. And your love of this center has created this new universe of wholeness. And we are so blessed. Let's just read our offertory affirmation, which says this: as I stand in the shadow of divine givingness, I receive and share my good with all. Once again, as I stand in the shadow of divine givingness, I receive and share my good with all. Well, let's say a prayer for our offertory this morning. So if you'd like to just go back within for just a moment. I give great thanks for these tithes, these gifts that have been given. They do good work in the world, and they allow this center to be open, to be that place where people can come and remember who they are in love, in peace, and in harmony. We take these gifts and return them into the community in a way that makes sense, that allow everyone to prosper. And for this, we are so well blessed. Thank you, divine energy of love. And so it is. Amen.